We are very excited to get started because we have a lot to show you folks, and by experience I know that I can stay like for 4 hours talking and won't advance like 10 slides. So my name is Alejandro. I'm joined here by my colleague Dave. We are from Steelcase Education. We are a dedicated team of professionals that work with K-12 and higher ed institutions across North America. We both cover this neck of the woods, and it's great to be back. Last time I was here, you were just breaking ground on the IRIC building. Isn't that funny how time flies? And now it's almost done. What a beautiful building. I had a great start this morning with breakfast at Bob's Place. That is a treasure. I have to tell you, for $7.50, it was all you can eat, and I had a vegetarian omelet. I mean, it was really, really good. Great croissant, and the best part was the coffee. The dark roast coffee, wow. No, I was impressed, honestly. It was really, really good. So
that's not going to put you to sleep, is it?
No,
Okay.
Actually, it's making me jittery. So, blended learning. Obviously, we are not IT. We are not going to talk about last generation projectors or video conferencing or teleconferencing or anything like that, because that part of technology has very capable people. We are going to focus on the social component of blended and how the social complement the high tech. And the key word here is the word relevant. I want you to think about that word because it's all about being relevant in today's world. How, even in, I mean, if you start from your personal perspective, how do I remain relevant to my kids? I mean, they're going to see me as, you know, an old dude that, I mean, they are ashamed of telling that I'm their dad. I have to be relevant with my wife. I mean, think about owning a car. How relevant is owning a vehicle today with the share economy? How relevant is it booking hotels in traditional rooms? I mean, the world is really changing. So how does that affect our campuses and our classrooms? Because to be honest with you folks, 5 years ago, when we started hearing about this trend of online and, you know, the MOOCs and everything is going to go online, oh my God, what are we going to do? We sell stuff at Steelcase. We sell furniture and tables, and much more obviously. But at one point, we were saying, you know what? We probably need to change business because classroom spaces, physical spaces, eventually are going to probably disappear because everything is going to go online. And luckily for us, 2 years later, researchers started looking at outcomes, student outcomes with students that were taking mostly online. And they quickly determined that if they compared groups of students that had all online, all brick and mortar, and a group that were combining both, the results were astonishing. The groups at the extremes, the all online or all brick and mortar, had almost similar outcomes. So there weren't many differences. But what was really surprising is that the group at the center, the ones that combined both the online and the brick and mortar, were much, much higher in terms of those outcomes. So that's very encouraging, and it also proved the point that learning is basically social. It is social. It's the peer-to-peer. It's when I can translate into my own words what I have heard. It's when I connect as an instructor with my students. It's when you guys remain engaged. That only happens when we are physically connected in space. Yes, technology is great. It does help. And there's a place for technology in education. So this question actually was posed a couple of weeks ago also at the conference that I attended in Phoenix for SCUP, the Society for College and University Planners. Are you guys aware of that organization? It's wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful because it keeps you relevant. Again, it gives you the option of networking with your peers, hear what's going on, see great architectural projects, etc. So that was the title of the conference, and it was a nice question to ask, because if campuses don't remain relevant, what's going to happen? You guys are going to walk with your feet. And as a matter of fact, in Arizona, I'm based in Phoenix, there's an alarming trend with community colleges. Enrollments are going down tremendously. And when enrollments go down, everyone panics because you have to start readdressing and trying to find out what's going on. So there are a couple colleges that have reacted faster than others, and those are the ones that are asking that hard question of how can we remain relevant? What is needed from us, obviously within the restraints of budgets and resources. But it's a question worth asking, and I obviously don't have all the answers. Some of the examples that we are going to share with you guys might not be applicable, but it's what we are seeing around North America in terms of making it more relevant, so that you guys, you students, keep coming and remain engaged. There are a couple examples just to highlight the point of relevance that I'm going to go quickly over, because again, don't want to waste too much time. This is a fun video clip that speaks volumes to both Dave and us. We are obviously regarded white-collar workers, so we used to work at an office with a computer, and it's all about, you know, creating knowledge and all that good stuff of being consultants. But our life has been changed in the last 10, 15 years tremendously. So I'm sure that you guys can all relate. So this is how it does. And you know what happens? Because it happened so kind of paced, I didn't realize that it was happening so fast. But I mean, if you go back, now this is my office. I mean, I'm not kidding you. This is my office. I am 99.9% paperless. I do not have a file cabinet at my home office. Needless to say, I've never had a cube in my life. I've been with Steelcase for 18 years, and I have never sat in a cube, knock on wood. I mean, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. And actually, you know, had they offered me $20,000 as an increase to be on a cube, I would not accept that money, because I mean, the freedom that this has given us is tremendous. But also the way it changed the way we worked. And going back to our business, to Steelcase, we used to sell cubes, like those big desks, you know, for huge computers and lots of cabinet files, for almost $5,000 a piece. That was 20 years ago. Now, when we look at benching, we can have one person working in something that's probably around $800. So that really transformed our business for good. And we could keep coming up with the latest systems furniture, with the most beautiful panel on the table, but we are not going to be able to change that. So same thing with Uber. I've only been using Uber, to be honest with you folks, maybe for a year at most, but it's been around for more. And we hear, and I feel sorry for the taxi drivers, because they are good people. But if they don't reinvent themselves quickly, they are going to be extinct. Again, it's about being relevant quickly. Whether we like it or not, I'm not going to talk about politics, this will change and has changed transportation forever. We are into the shared economy. And I hope that the taxi drivers find another way of adding value to us, because there would be a lot of taxi drivers unemployed. Why do we like Uber? I mean, I like it because I save 50% when I go to the airport from my house in Scottsdale. Taking taxis would cost me $80 plus tip. And I never knew how much tip would be good. 10, is it 10, 15%? Now with Uber, I pay $39. Less than half, and I get to get into a newer car, cleaner, and I've had great conversations with the dudes that have driven me. So it's a great experience. It's disruptive because it has improved a service at half the cost. With Airbnb, again, another disclosure, I have not booked a room with them, but I've heard that it's fantastic. And I saw a statistic where by the number of nights being reserved. There are like head above shoulders from, let's say, Marriott in terms of nights reserved in a year. So people are changing the way they book accommodations when they travel. And again, you are saving money. You are getting in sometimes better locations because you are getting in residential areas where hotels are not. And now they are launching a service where your host is going to also provide you touring services if you want. It's going to take you in his or her car around, showing you to places. So think about, again, like a personal concierge, and maybe, you know, have the cost of what you would pay at a chain hotel like that looks the same everywhere across North America. So again, I'm talking about this because in education, the changes are not so perceivable. I mean, they are happening, but it's not, they haven't gathered the mass gravitas that the other two changes have. So just as an example, these are some of the things that online and technology has brought to us. How many of you know a term that you might not be familiar with? Or are you guys familiar with all the 4 terms? Because we have heard that, obviously, for those of us in the business, we know that, but I don't know if, for example, you can talk about all 4? You know what they are?
Most of them, yeah.
Most of them? What about MOOC? Do you know what it is? Yeah. Okay, so that's one example, and it's a good example, and I'm not picking on you, but it's a good example. It's a massive open online course. Massive open online course. And for those of you that haven't looked into it, I suggest you do it because what it is, it's a free option of learning stuff that has been put together by very prestigious institutions. Stanford, for example, has one, and many, many others. If you Google MOOC or MOOCs, you are going to have probably pages and pages of MOOCs. You go there, you find your area of interest amongst, I don't know, maybe 2,000, 3,000 courses, and you take that course given by an authority worldwide. It's not as basic as going to YouTube and Googling something. This is really requires your participation. You have to book it. It only starts certain times of the year, and you have to complete a sequence of courses. So it's really a step up from those YouTube courses. But it's amazing what you can achieve by just looking at MOOCs. And I'm not up to speed again with the speed of change, but digital badges are going to be awarded as well because for some employers, a badge might have more weight than just a bachelor's. Because a company can go, Intel can go and create their own course. And you as a student would take that course, and then you would have that badge. So for you to get employed by Intel or whomever, it's going to be more important to have that badge than to have a bachelor's in something else. So that's how things are changing. And we also hear the term CTE. Actually, I just learned about it last week. I didn't know what it meant. So I asked, hey, what does it mean? And it's career technology education. So that's another avenue where things are changing. And it might also be one of the reasons why enrollment is going down in some community colleges because they have not kept up to speed with what is needed out there. So just an example as to how much is going on that we need to keep our pace on that change. So Dave is going to share with us quickly the perspective that we have at Steelcase Education around spaces, and obviously this is around blended, the role that technology plays, but better than that, how it's all about social and behavioral interventions.
Thanks, Alejandro. So who has had an opportunity to see this Venn diagram before? Anybody seen this? Randa, a couple other people. So this is how we tend to view learning spaces in education environments. At the very top is pedagogy. That's the teaching style that an instructor, professor, teacher is going to be using at a given moment in time. Now, that's not our sweet spot. That's really not where we come to play. But we do have a lot of resources and a lot of thought that's been put into both the physical space as well as on the technology side. So specifically around space, you can think of formal learning spaces, otherwise known as classrooms, but you can also think about the additional spaces, library learning commons, the in-between spaces. And these spaces all should be built and designed with flexibility around the idea of pedagogy. So in a lot of cases, you may have real large fixed seat lecture halls, not terribly flexible. They serve a great purpose. But if we think about starting to implement active learning, that means the space has to shift on the fly and be able to accommodate teaching mode switches, even in as short as a 50-minute classroom period onto the 2 and 4 hour studio spaces. So in general, things that are mobile and flexible are going to serve those needs very well. Thinking then about technology, there's two-prong approach with that. It's, first of all, the fun stuff, the digital things, like our smartphones and PDAs, tablets, laptops, those things. But equally important, maybe even more important, are the analog tools that we bring. So it's the whiteboard, it's the pen and paper that you have. There's consistent research that's indicating that as we are trying to learn something, we have the opportunity to take notes on our laptop or our tablet, and we have an opportunity to write notes manually, whether it's manual entering into a tablet or just pen and paper. And research has, again, kind of refreshed this idea that we actually retain more when we're using handwritten notes. So the idea of, in that blended learning environment, digital as well as analog is real important. Next slide. So what's driving some of this change? Well, a lot of that is based on what the employers that are going to employ you students as well as University of Idaho's graduates are asking for from them. So it's the critical thinking skills, problem solving, communicating, collaborating. Those are the big skills that employers are looking for from graduates. And if we think back to how many of us have learned over the years, myself included, it's been more of a passive learning environment. I listened to a lecture, I took notes, I studied, I took an exam, got some form of assessment. I read a book, I took notes, and there wasn't as much active participation from the learner. The active participation with the learning itself and with problems and project-based activities, that's where those soft skills, the social skills that Alejandro referred to, really get developed. And then, as students, you're coming to campus with your own set of expectations. Whether it's a traditional age student, 18 to 22, whether it's adult learners coming back to university or coming to university first time around, you have a certain set of expectations. You want to be involved in engaging learning activities. Access to technology has to be ubiquitous. We look at some of these beautiful old brick buildings. They're wonderful, but they're also create horrible dead spots for Wi-Fi, and that becomes a challenge. So universities are struggling with how to keep up with the demand for access to Wi-Fi and other access points to technology. Has anyone here ever faced a challenge with charging a device? Okay, how many of you are going to be running for that corner table at 2 o'clock this afternoon to plug in your laptop? Yeah, okay, a few of you. So those are things. Also, the traditional age students and some adult learners as well are really savvy with social networks, and they don't want to exit the social network when they walk into classrooms. So social networks are really an important part as well. And then this whole thing of sense of community, feeling like you belong to the institution, and you represent the institution. And then last, just like in the white-collar world of workers, there's this desire to have choice and control about how, where, and when they work. Students are looking for choice and control in terms of how, where, and when they learn. And that might even be in the same classroom in the same period. So to the point of blended learning, that is giving students more choice and control. So some students might do better learning by watching a short online video segment that a professor has pre-recorded or other content that's online. Others might be better served by doing small project work, teamwork in class, or listening to lecture.
So now the sad part.
Then there are a number of series of design principles that are indicating what we feel are important to consider when you're planning learning spaces, both the formal as well as informal learning spaces. I'm not going to go through all of these, but a couple of the ones that are real key is planning for the analog as well as digital side. So more whiteboards in more spaces in classrooms. Temporary ownership of space. So can students grab a space assuming it's not impacting other things, and use it for project or team collaborative work. And then finally, supporting the dynamic engagements, so those engagements that are moving and fluid. Now, a small tip, we put a lot of this information online, and so if you ever go to steelcaseeducation.com, we have an active learning insights guide, and a lot of the planning principles and design ideas, as well as thought starters, are resident in that. It gets updated typically every 6 months to annually, and it's information you can download and access it at your own time.
You've also heard that learning happens at probably much higher percentage outside formal spaces, like in informal spaces. I have heard researchers that say that 60% can happen outside the classroom. Others say 40. Let's say even if it's 50-50, we need to pay attention to spaces outside the formal classroom as well. And some of these design principles should apply to those in-between spaces because, again, it's all about the social connectivity. And we can all listen to lectures at home. We need to have a reason to come to campus, again, to make it relevant. So blended, again, allows us to come here to experience what we have kind of gathered in the virtual online component. The word blended could be either towards this side or towards the other side. There's no sweet spot as to the ratio between one or the other. But definitely, again, going back to that research, the physical space does help tremendously in terms of outcomes. You have probably heard about Bloom's taxonomy of learning. Basically, Dr. Benjamin Bloom made it easy for us to understand how we evolve from just being aware of something to becoming an expert. So let's think about something as easy, just for the sake of an example, of cooking. I need to be aware of the techniques, the basic techniques of making a sauté, a sauce, to bake, etc. So that would be the remembering and somehow the understanding. That I can learn online easily. How to, beat my eggs, how much salt to put, etc., etc. But until I start cooking myself, I'm gonna get the hang of it, and I'm gonna see that this is too salty. This probably, if I add a little bit of cream to the eggs, they're gonna be more tasty, etc. The applying piece is critical, and the more I apply, the more I'm gonna become an expert on the field, and then come up with my own contribution and become a well-known chef. So that's sort of a simple way of understanding how Bloom can also be applied to blended if we look at the bottom side of the pyramid as those things that we can achieve from online, and then the social piece for the higher up components. And again, this has to do with the research that I was originally talking about. And as Dave was saying, let's think about not only the classroom that seats 30 students, that's part of the general catalog, but let's think about computer labs, spaces in libraries, innovation spaces, maker spaces, project rooms, faculty spaces, even hallways should be to some degree helpful in blended. We have in that application guide that Dave referenced also, we have specific sections for each one of these functional areas, and each one of them by itself could merit just one presentation. We always start with the research around the topics, then we come up with some design principles specific to that functional area, and then we show some thought starters. So if you want to find more, for example, about faculty, that's another hot topic, how to move faculty from closed offices to open offices. Wouldn't that be an interesting conversation? So things like that can be informed through some of the ideas that we provide. In terms of what blended has given us in terms of options, now I don't only have the option to stand in front and lecture, but I can create as many activities as the ones highlighted here, depending on how virtual I want to become and how individual I want to become. So now we have spaces that should have this type of title. So no classrooms should be all the same. How many of these do we need at each college? It all depends on the program. It all depends on the budget. But the message here is that we have to start looking at classrooms at a much broader angle and move away from standards. One table and one chair that might work for one classroom should not work for others, where other topics are being taught or other instructors are using it. So let's just break that mold of one size fits all. And then the sad part, this is the sad part, I was jumping ahead before. Unfortunately, I have taken so many photos like this that I stopped taking them because they all look the same. Actually, this is one of the best ones because it's clean. But honestly, it's a shame that we have spaces like this everywhere across North America. And you know what? You know how much it would cost today to build this hallway here? Let's say, if my eye is not bad, it's probably 2,000 square feet. $200 a square foot, that's $400,000 wasted in that thing, in that space. Yes, it's clean. Yeah, it's painted. And it has a dark wall. Oh, my goodness, yeah, there's some change, not all white. But it's a shame. I mean, it's really a shame. That's not being relevant. That is not attracting students. That is not attracting faculty. And unfortunately, we have spaces like this everywhere. Yes, we might not have the budget to change all the buildings that have spaces like this, but we can be intentional. We can open a window there. We can throw a couple lounge pieces. We can put some power. We can put some color. We can put some posters. I mean, we can do much better than this. And if this is directed by facilities or by janitors, I mean, we are not doing it right for our constituents. But at the same time, it's good for us because we have the opportunity to improve spaces like this. But there are so many out there that we are never going to be able to do them all fast enough, because change is very slow in education. So now we're going to show with you guys how we can make the campus more relevant, how we can benefit from the blended and making it more a destination. How, if I am an employer, instead of going to Starbucks, I go to my office because I want to be with my peers, I want to have fun, I want to be in nice, inspiring spaces. Same with students. Why do we want them to stay in their dorms doing online 24/7? Why should they go to Starbucks? Why should they go to Chipotle? They should be coming to campuses to complement their learning. So some ideas out there, some might not be applicable. But again, it's just throwing out there. This is like a brainstorming, and you know that there are no bad ideas when you brainstorm. What about opening sidelines? I mean, there's nothing to hide inside classroom. We should celebrate what happens inside a classroom. It's okay to peek. It's okay to see activity. It's okay to see students working. What if the space allows, why don't we extend the experience of the classroom outside, so that when we are waiting to get into class or when we leave class, we can step for a minute and finish a conversation with our group of friends, or maybe, you know, as they were saying, sit down and charge our computer and wait for 15 minutes in a little more inspiring space.
Hey, Alejandro, can you go back for just a second? Who here, when you're working or studying, likes to stand up? Okay, so there's about a quarter of you in the room. So there's an opportunity. We'd like to call it a palette of place and a palette of posture. So you've got different places to go, and you've got different postures you can assume. So the table on the sort of left-hand side, it's opportunity for digital collaboration, but it's also a chance where some students could stand up and have a working space there. The ones off to the right are more lounge-based posture, and or a place where you can have a cup of coffee or a meal. So just wanted to share.
Absolutely. Here again, going back to your comment about a palette of posture. I mean, we don't have to be all doing the same thing while we are in a class, especially in today's blended environments. There's a group of students that could be working at their own pace here. There are another group of students that could be engaged remotely with another institution. There are multiple things that could happen, and it's fun. It's something that sends a message to the students that we care about them. Simple things like having a carpeted classroom. You would think that it would be a no-brainer, but still, I find institutions that don't have the policy of carpet because either they think they have the perception that it's not clean or it's more expensive. But there are many studies conducted by multiple people where having a tiled carpet is also beneficial because of the fibers and the treatments that those carpets have. Not to mention the acoustic benefits of a carpeted environment. Especially when you have a hard ceiling and a hard floor, it's very hard to listen, and listening is one of the first basic things of active learning. If I cannot hear, I cannot be engaged. Also, because we are advocating for moving parts, chairs and tables, it's much easier to roll on a carpet than to roll on a flat surface. Because even though you might get casters that are soft for hard floors, it's not as easy when you have a carpeted environment. And also talking about access to power, here, if you decide to use carpet tile, we now have solutions to bring power to old buildings. We came up with a 3/16 of an inch system that goes beneath the carpet tile and allows you access to either hubs where you can connect 6 plugs, or you can have a NEMA plug where you can directly connect. And they are also ADA compatible, because the idea is not to have this connected all the time. Because again, active learning, movement, we have to be changing. The minute we tether something, that's not going to change. Right now, this is tethered here somehow. I'm never going to be able to move it from here, and I'm going to be attached to the front of this. So looking at the whole ecosystem of color, light, finishes, acoustics, it's something that really enhances the experience. Changing postures again. We all, to your point, we all would benefit from having different positions. This is intended more for activity-based. Think about something like a maker space without the equipment, another type of making space. All maker spaces don't need to have 3D printers. So it's like an activity center. You have great lighting, you have access to whiteboards, you have storage, and you have a nice density. And that's another thing. When we're talking about active learning and we look at only at efficiencies, it's going to be a challenge, because we need at least 20 square feet per student to be able to have an active space. If you have 25, even better. These photos here are around 20, 25 per student, because when we get into 16, 17, it's going to be impossible to move. It's going to be very, very static. And again, here, the technology is analog technology in this particular case.
So this is an active learning pilot classroom that we installed at University of Washington Seattle campus last summer. And we spent quite a bit of time. We did upfront workshop with faculty as well as the design team to better understand what elements they wanted included in that pilot space. Good news, bad news is, like a lot of universities, they had to figure out which classroom are we going to take offline and dedicate it to that space. So to Alejandro's point, this was a class that was much more densely packed than it's showing here. And the university had to agree that, okay, we're going to get by with less students in this classroom space. So it's in the basement of Mary Gates Hall, which is one of the more historic buildings on campus, and it was an old computer lab. So in this, they recarpeted, redid lighting, redid an acoustical ceiling treatment, as well as added a second screen. So you have information persistence, 2 walls. If you want to go to the next slide.
And the good thing is that here, you're going to see the high tech. This is all the high tech. Gorgeous projectors, beautiful screens. And then here.
Here you have that blend of analog and digital. So on the left-hand side, there are small individual whiteboards that can be taken and connected to the tables right here. They'll actually snap into this little receiver or could be stored down below. So small group annotation, presentation, that kind of thing can be done there. And then this classroom can very quickly transition if it needs to be on a lecture orientation. The tables, chairs are on wheels, and it can be reoriented to sort of row by column. Thanks.
Whenever I attend these conferences, I ask the experts, if you were to pick one piece, what would be the piece of technology that you could not live with in spaces like this? And I've heard things like the smart board. I mean, that's kind of an obvious question when we are talking with someone, you know, with a technology background. I have also heard others say the round table, because, you know, it's all about the scale up, the teal model that I think there's right now a presentation going on the other room that unfortunately I missed, that I think was based on the teal concept, which is about round tables that sit between 6, 8, and 9. There are different models. If you asked us what piece do we think is the most important in a learning environment like this, we would say that it's the swivel chair. And it's very simple, because if I'm encouraged as an instructor to move around and connect with you folks, and obviously I'm not doing it very well today, but if I were good, I would be moving around, I would like you folks to be able to turn around and follow me seamlessly without hesitation. But right now, with a 4-legged chair, that's not going to happen. I mean, you can do this, but it's not really very conducive. So having the swivel chair was for us an aha moment. And to be honest with you guys, we didn't think about it at the beginning. This has come up as we conduct research and video ethnography, and we ask students, what do you really like about this space? What's kind of unique? And it's so intuitive that it's hard to tell, but it's that swivel. It's that eye-to-eye connection, again, the social component that enables that. And think about this. This is also another cool space that has technology. That's a blackboard. So how much would that be an incentive for me to come to campus to attend either a presentation? It could be poetry. It could be something in that space. I mean, that's something that I would definitely make a 30 or 45-minute drive to be in that type of environment. And you folks, most universities have great outdoor spaces. Even if you can only use them for 6 months a year, you have the real estate. Yes, you need to build it. Yes, there's some money needed, but I'm pretty sure that, I mean, fundraising campaigns can easily be achieved if you show the vision of spaces like this, taking it outdoors, just thinking outside the box, and again, trying to make it relevant. Again, I keep mentioning that word, and I'm going to hammer it for maybe 20 more minutes. How to make it relevant.
Just tagging on to that, I've done probably 4 different planning workshops with either K-12 schools or universities in the last couple of months. And access to outdoor learning spaces is one of the things that's come up in every one of those workshops, both from the faculty standpoint, wanting to teach outside, as well as the students' desire. And it's not just Scottsdale, Phoenix, it's, let's see, I was in Edmonton, Alberta, that came up, Vancouver, BC, Medicine Hat, Alberta. Anybody know what that's like in the winter? Probably not happening then, but in the spring and early fall months.
I mean, it's something about the texture, it's something about the green, it's something about the fresh air, it's being that, I don't know, I feel very passionate about this. And then, you know, this is another that would be considered an informal space. It's for students to gather between classes, to keep them in the building so that they don't have to go outside, so that they can continue their work as a group. Obviously, they're going to have great access to Wi-Fi, that's a given. And there's also some projection so that that space can be multi-purpose. But I mean, look at the intentionality with the finishes, with the furnishings. It's about not only providing an utilitarian use, but enhancing the experience. Thinking about how much can we add in terms of color and aesthetics to make it really, really attractive. Lighting, and there's also some options of food and beverages that always attract students. even auditoriums can be made relevant. That's going to be more challenging because depending on the depth of the platforms in the auditorium, you're going to be able to either combine two or extend one so that you could have, this is a large platform here as opposed to shorter ones that you would have in other auditoriums. So here you can have both individual group work and then you can have a complete immersion for everybody. So you can serve here from 350 students up to maybe as low as 20 if you engage just one area of the auditorium. There are multiple displays around, and yes, this is a new building, and it was probably expensive to build. But just the idea that even spaces as rigid as a fixed auditorium have potential if we looked at the space from a different lens, with a different perspective. And all the furniture here, by the way, is nestable and movable, because a building this expensive needed to be used 24/7. So it was conceived for other functions like concerts and arts exhibits. So everything that you see here can be taken out of the space probably in 30 minutes and have a clean slate, so that you can bring banquet tables, standing bar height, you can have different sections, galleries. That's something really creative in terms of making much more from what could have been another auditorium with fixed seating. Yes, nice carpet and nice chairs, but still an auditorium.
What do you do with those tiered levels then? You can make it into an auditorium?
You mean these levels here?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, yeah, they allow you for the group settings in tables, but then when you remove them, I have seen, for example, they have done fundraising functions, where you would have like cafe high tables where people would gather around. In some of the platforms, they would be showing videos on the screens. I mean, you could have lounge seating, you just have a clean slate to work with. You could extend it, you can open it to the community. So it's just about thinking differently. What else can we do instead of using this maybe, I don't know, 3 times a day? Why don't you use it 7 days a week? But it needs some pre-planning, obviously, and some intentionality. But it's also, the pendulum always goes, from one side to the other, but we also have to address the need for privacy and for concentration. Yes, social is great and we need it, but at some point, some of us, especially those of us that are introverts, and it's been shown that 30% of us are introverts. How many in this room is considered an introvert? And there's nothing to be ashamed of. Yes, it's probably a third of us. We need spaces also to be by ourselves and recharge. So think about spaces like provide that. I think you guys might be getting a couple of these spots for your library. So just give them a try. Understand that they are meant just for those moments when you need to recharge, when you need to focus down in an environment. We don't all need access to enclaves. We don't all need access to closed rooms. All we need is some sort of peripheral privacy and some signage that, hey, I'm here kind of heads down. Not to mention that the ergonomics are well taken care of. You have access to your own light. You have access for storage. You have a nice reclined posture. And you have an adjustable pivot surface that allows you to bring your work in and out. So we call it Brody, and we launched it at the American Library Association conference in San Francisco last year, and it's been a great option for in-between spaces, libraries, student unions, anywhere where you guys walk. And then here, in regards to a specific conference that happened in Scottsdale for SCOP, this was the one that covers all our region here. It's called the Pacific region. So it's almost half of North America, if you think about it. And what I'm going to share with you are different examples of spaces from the building to from the space in the building to the campus to the community. So we are going to zoom from in out, just to show you how, again, we can make it more relevant by extending it to the community. Because this was in Phoenix, the 3 universities in the state had a very strong presence in attendance. So most of the photos I'm showing are from my state. But they tell a story as to how open they are now. This is the new College of Business. The previous building, which was probably 30 years old, was like a fortress. I mean, it was all closed, little windows. It was really, really hard. It wasn't very inviting from the outside. Look at this one. Even in the desert, where you would think that, we have to hide from the sun, look at how open this is, how inviting to the extreme that it could. How the circulations from the campus are weaved into the building. So again, attracting, come here, come here. See me, look at this. I mean, this is very intentional, providing all these seating options for the students. They missed one thing. What did they miss? Well, power. It would have been great had they built power on that concrete bench. But I mean, that's really a space I would love to hang after classroom or in between. I don't want to go outside. I mean, the way the building was designed in terms of working with the sun, the shading it provides, the amenities, the proximity to a cafeteria, the landscaping, and the landscaping is young. This building is probably not even 2 years old. So when in 5 years, it's going to be really, really gorgeous. And look at the type of spaces that bubble up in the menu of what they call community spaces. Events, that's open to the community. Events everywhere, special events, food, and then all that weaved again through the campus. This is probably one of my favorite ones, and this one takes us to Tucson, 2 hours from Phoenix. This is a new building for RNC, Natural Resources Building. They just opened their doors probably 3 months ago. The vision that the university and the architect had was to create a sense of a canyon, like a canyon with all the curves and shades and different planes that are part of it, and shading, again, inviting people to stay and enjoy, again, the landscaping. All those yellow spots were called collision spaces. That was the name that they perceived. We want you to collide intentionally. We want to create, for example, the location of restrooms, for example. That's a great idea of how to make people walk to a destination and have no choice but to collide with someone. Food is one of the magnets here for this particular building. And this big auditorium here, the outdoor space here, this is conceived as the atrium to that auditorium. So this is where you would stay after and before a class here. And I've seen this really, really packed, and students do stay after. That's one of the spaces that opens to that central court. It has some huge garage doors that open up. And again, if we can do this in the desert, where it hits 90, 100 degrees, there's no excuse because of the weather that I cannot do this. It's really a step up in terms of design and services provided to students. And at the same time, it's not too ostentatious. It has polished concrete floors. It's easy to maintain, but it's thinking in a different way. Here there are other examples across this neck of the woods, talking about that same vibe of spaces that might not have been popular 5 years ago, that are popping up everywhere. Access to natural light. There's no space that is dark, like the one we showed at the beginning, that hallway. No, this is the opposite. It's celebratory. It has color. It has options. It has lots of choices. It has activity. It has transparencies. And again, these are real examples. These are not just pie in the sky. STEM centers that are open, that people can come. Maker spaces. There was a conference again last week, the Association for Learning Environments, previously known as CEFP. And one takeaway, the one I did take away was that makerspace could mean different things to different people. There's a range of what a makerspace can be. It can be something with 3D printers and heavy machinery, but it could also be a space where you can come up to create poetry, to do dance. I mean, it involves activity. It doesn't have to be necessarily a 3D printer. So it's great because now that's the buzzword. Oh, maker spaces. Oh, we're doing a maker space. There's so much richness, and again, it's that sort of I need to come here because I'm never going to be able to have this experience at home. So it's making me want to come. Co-working spaces, and again, all these are part of a building in Utah, and this is how the spaces were labeled. So none of this say general classroom. It doesn't say general classroom, or it doesn't say auditorium. They are coming with these words that inspire activity, that inspire social encounters. Look at this one. Gaming and digital media. Again, this could be part of a student union. This could be part of a library. This could be part of even a STEM or STEAM. Global impact and sustainability. This is not too far from here. This is part of the library. So again, think about how libraries also have been changing, because if libraries think that they're going to survive by students retrieving books, checking books out, well, good luck, because that's not the main reason why most students go to libraries now. And I have to be careful with this, because I was once giving just talking about the evolution of libraries, and a very wonderful lady just stood up from the room and left, and she later said that I deeply offended her. She happened to be a librarian, and she thought I was saying that her job was going to be threatened because of what was going on. But again, think about the Uber and the Airbnb scenario.
Alejandro,
Yes.
we got a time warning.
Yes. Yeah, we're almost probably 2 slides. So most libraries are trying to keep pace, but still there are many that are dark, that are quiet, that you are not supposed to have conversations or engaged. And the minute you enter those doors, you know that you are in those type of spaces. So those institutions that have embraced libraries as the academic hub of an institution are really differentiating themselves. And I would say that probably 40 or 50% of my time, and probably Dave's too, is spent working around libraries, because they are really ripe for change. And just extending it to the community, a couple more slides on ASU. This is College of Construction. It's on purpose. It was built outside the main campus, and it has a very strong connection to the community. These are some of the attributes that they were considering. So this is the one I really like: placemaking, engagement, activation. They wanted to activate an area of Tempe that needed that activation. So here you can start looking at how they zoom out and they extend the reach to the community, how it has become an engagement place for students and neighbors, and the idea of placemaking. And another one at Utah, more from an internal perspective, turning the the main campus into an arboretum for people to enjoy and thinking it as a master plan. And again, think about all the options for outside classrooms that you can have here. It's amazing what you can do. So in closing, there is no iPhone in team. So this might be the greatest invention, but this is not going to threaten the way we learn because it's all about social connections. So that's our point of view when it comes to blended. Thank you. Any questions? You guys have like 5 minutes.